Welcome to another Employee Experience Labs podcast from the Munich Podcast Studio. Employee Experience podcasts are about HR tech, employee experience, shared services, and other important topics around HR at the workplace. We're at the beginning of 2025, and today is the right time to look back at 2024, as well as peek a bit into 2025. I want to do this today with two special guests, Davis and Prateek, who will introduce themselves in a minute as well. Both are dear friends as well as professional colleagues in the space of HR, tech, and experience. And with them, we will look back at 2024 by rewatching our 2024 predictions and discussing how true they turned out to be or what else in 2024 actually happened. And of course, I won't let them go without asking their perspective on 2025 and what will happen in 2025. Davis, Prateek, welcome. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Excellent.
Good to have you, Prateek. Davis, how are you?
Thank you for having us, Volker. A pleasure to be here. I'm great. It's a great way to start 2025. Thank you again. It's always a pleasure meeting you.
It is always a pleasure. And it's the first time we're doing this it's a few first times today, actually. It's the first time I have two guests. I'm really excited about that. But also the first time we share some of the content from past sessions to talk about it. But before we go there, Davis, a few words of introduction about yourself.
Sure. Volker, I lead HR operations, employee experience for Diageo, which is a global spirits company, owner of brands as Johnny Walker, Smirnoff, Tanqueray, Guinness, Captain Morgan, Don Julio, and many others. We have a global headcount of 30,000 people across the world, and we service those employees through three main centers, one in Hungary, one in Manila, and one in Bangalore, with a headcount of around 280 people in my organization doing payroll operations, learning operations, reward, global process ownership, and many other things as well. I am based in London in the UK, but I'm originally from Costa Rica and been doing this for the past 15, 20 years now.
Let's not say this, David. It just ages us.
Yes.
It just ages us.
All right. Let's skip that part. And let's not mention that part. But they call it what makes us wiser, I believe.
Exactly.
Right.
We are wise but not old yet.
Exactly. But yeah, so a pleasure to be here again, interacting and exchanging ideas with you, Prateek and Volker. I think couldn't be a better way to start 2025 for sure.
Thank you, Davis. Prateek, welcome. A few
Hello,
words
sir.
of introduction from you.
First of all, thank you for having me in the podcast. Right, it's a good opportunity.
It's my
I think,
pleasure.
and I'm actually honored to be part of the Volker podcast. You know, we have all been listening about it for a while now. I'm Prateek. I'm based out of Paris. I've been working with Accenture, looking after the enterprise architecture for HR technology. Been with Accenture for about 5 years. Been within this sector for about 14 years now, Davis. So similar to Volker and yourself, worked in the industry before. Started my career on the other side and then moved into consulting about 9 years ago. And time has been flying since then. I've been looking at a lot of different things, Workday, SuccessFactors, a lot of the technology stack and what it can do and what the future holds for us, essentially. So really excited to discuss that and share the ideas with you guys.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for having the time today, Prateek, and it's great to have you. And also with you, we don't share any ages, we don't share any time. It just makes us all look bad. And I think
I look
particularly at the beginning of the year, we should all feel young. Everything is at the new start, right?
Exactly.
So we are young. Good, fantastic. So for our listeners, what we will do is we will look into the predictions that we had in 2023 for 2024 with some of the colleagues. Davis was one of the predictors back then, and we will start with a clip from him in a second. But what we will do is we will listen to those great predictions and thank you again for everyone who was doing that. If you want to listen more to it, they are still available on the stream. Just click a bit further down into the podcast series and you will find them. But without any further ado, let's go there and have the first one for us.
AI and all the possibilities will continue to be a prominent part of the conversations and discussions because it's challenging organization to experiment and learn. I think that companies will try to continue to catch that early adoption, those early initial wave of excitement, if you will, to make sure that they give their employees that experience, a glimpse of what it can potentially look like. However, my caveat to that is that they will do it with caution. Investment will be very scrutinized in terms of AI still for the organization, but they will still would want to show their employees that they're ready to embark on early adoption.
Thank you, Davis. So, what do we think? How did 24 turn out? What did you see? Davis, do you mind if I start with you? It was your prediction. What did you see?
Well, I think that I looked younger back then. Okay, that's what I saw. Now, in all seriousness, it wasn't that dissimilar um, throughout the year. Even
Yeah.
at the end of the year, the conversations that I had with different colleagues was still very much in the same lines about experimentation, about doing something, but still not going all the way. Lots of um, reservations, if you will, in terms of implications on data security, on hallucinations, on reliance of AI, really. I think that more awareness at the end of the year is what I saw in terms of AI and what this really means for organizations and the implications legally as well. Um, but I did see throughout the year still excitement, still eagerness, and still interest from companies to say, what's in it for me? How can we implement something? What is it that we can do here? I don't think that we've seen the efficiencies and productivity that people have predicted, but still, there was excitement around AI.
Thanks, Davis. And just to be clear, you did not predict any efficiencies yet for 2024. You said this will come later. So I think you would agree with your assessment, right? Prateek, what do you think? What did you see?
I think I'm very aligned with what Davis is saying, right? I think there has been a lot of interest, let's put it that way, right? But you and I, we discussed with quite a lot of people recently when we were at Rising, right? There's a general sense from HR leaders to wait and see. They all want to wait and see. I think there are some bold movers who are into the early uptake of AI within the companies, but even those are very targeted and piloted way. And I think one of the most common concerns that I've been hearing, of course, there's data privacy and security and all of the regulatory concerns, is around bias. Um, are, are the AI tools trained enough right now to to make unbiased decisions on their own? And I think that's the biggest caution that I've been hearing, right? It's like, okay, what's the ethical concern over here? Are we going to go into a biased mode if things are done by AI rather than people? And I think the other again, the cause of concern or the cause of caution is AI replacing jobs. HR in general is very people centric, right? The clue is in the name, is human resource. Is AI going to replace people? And I think that is causing a lot of cautions between our leaders in the space.
Thanks, Prateek. Also in line, as you said. I mean, what am I to say anything different? I'm also fully aligned with that. The interesting thing is truly that I've seen, and then Prateek, you were mentioning it a minute ago. We were both at the Rising conference earlier. No, not earlier this year. Hoppala, we are in 25. At the end of last year. What I saw there was very interesting. You had definitely a group of companies that are testing it out, that are not yet sure, Davis, as you said, where this really comes and really goes. But also, I still saw companies that were completely hesitant and didn't yet do anything. This is where I'm, I mean, I'm with you, Davis. I still haven't seen any of the efficiencies yet, and it's
Yeah.
still a question if all the investment will make it worthwhile. But not going there at all and making the experience, getting the experience of testing it, I think if you haven't done this yet, you are late to the game.
Yeah.
But what do you say?
And one more thing to just to sort of add, Volker, is you might recall a couple of years ago there was a whole conversation, Davis. I watched one of your podcasts around metaverse, right? And that was kind of a
Yes, our
that was
favorite topic,
yeah,
Davis.
yeah, I
Yeah.
know, but that was kind of a red herring, right? It was like,
Mm.
yeah, there's metaverse, but people didn't really know what the use cases are, or it wasn't quite tangible at that time.
Mm.
With AI, the case is quite different.
Mm.
I think everyone's aware that there's tangibility behind it. Everyone's aware that there are use cases. People are just cautious because they don't know how to approach it. And I think that's the difference. With metaverse, it was a what? Is
Mhm.
this real? Whereas with AI, everyone knows that it's
It's the
real because
how.
people are using
Yeah.
every day in their
Yeah.
personal lives, but it's the how which is causing the biggest concern right now.
Interesting perspective.
Volker, to the point that you're saying, mentioning about missing out, I think
Yeah.
that organizations that are being cautious about it, the problem that they could face is their employee base. Employees actually pushing for experimentation
Yeah.
because they're reading, they're listening, they're seeing other organizations trying things, and they want to see for themselves. So there's a push not only from HR leaders or organizations themselves, but also from employees.
Yeah.
Saying, right, what is it that my company is offering in this space as well, right? So there's an element of pressure as well coming
Yes.
from the employees
And
that would want to
That leads
live.
nicely to the second topic.
it leads nights to the next prediction, actually. But before going there, there's one thing, because I read it earlier this morning. Microsoft. I think we all know Microsoft. They are doubling down again
Mhm.
on the AI investments, right? If I get the numbers right, in their previous fiscal year, they have invested $65 billion. And for the current fiscal year, they are planning $80 billion of AI infrastructure investment. So they are still very bullish. And I mean, Microsoft, believe it or not, also something I read today, I wasn't aware of. In April, they will turn 50. Microsoft will be 50 years old. So doubling down that strong, they can't be completely off,
Mhm.
right? But Davis, let's go with your point and look into the next prediction. This time, I'm sharing something from David Gard's side, very much along the line of what you have just said.
I was, talking with anybody about this right now, I would say focus on one thing. You cannot ignore Gen AI. It is a tremendous opportunity, right? It's really going to allow you to do things that only a few years ago only a Google or a Microsoft could do. It's also not going to be a choice. People are going to be using this stuff. And I think really we in this sort of world of employee experience need to get ahead of this because it's coming. And it will be happening. It already is happening in 23, and in 24 it's absolutely going to hit the mainstream.
Davis, what do you think?
I think he's absolutely right. Actually, you cannot ignore it. You cannot ignore it. Mainstream. I'm not sure in 2025. I think that people will continue talking about it. People will continue to want to experiment. However, and I think I mentioned this earlier, but take to your point, the realization of the implications in terms of bias, in terms of regulation, in terms of the other data privacy, in terms of all of the other things that go beyond the excitement from the beginning, it's also becoming more important for organizations. Now they have added that lens into the conversations. Before, it was about the use cases. Now it's about what are the implications. Then this is probably something good, but then do we really want to do it? And are we doing the right thing? So there's something there in terms of the conversations that will happen that will be more, that will be deeper in terms of implications from AI.
Have you seen it, Prateek? What is your experience?
I
Are
mean,
people just using it?
yes, they are.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't stop them. I
Yeah.
used ChatGPT this morning, right? It's everyone is using it. It's
Yeah.
and it's not just for work. Yeah, we are using it for personal lives. It's I'll give you one example. I went on holiday earlier in 2024. ChatGPT planned my entire vacation, 4 weeks of it. Right?
Nice.
What used to take me maybe a week
Yeah.
was done within minutes. So I think that prediction is not just in motion, it's actually come true, right? We saw a tectonic shift in 2024 in people adopting this technology. Not talking about companies, I'm talking about individuals, right?
Yeah.
And it reminds me of how quickly we adopted SatNav or Google Maps and things when they came to play, right? And that's how quick or even widen that it's been. And sometimes, and I've got the privilege of looking at it from a company that's pushing these ideas to our clients,
Yeah.
and also working internally as well, as in terms of
Yeah.
what we are doing internally and
Yeah.
how we are working with them. And we see a range of people. So we are seeing people who want to extract more in terms of productivity, right? Gone are the days when you're sitting there and building an Excel table, which has got different parameters, etc., because you want it like that. All you have to do is just use some words in Microsoft Copilot. I've done that before I went on holiday, and it creates it for me, right? It's like I don't have to spend hours and hours in doing something which doesn't necessarily add value.
Yeah.
And I'm also seeing younger people, right? My cousins or my brothers and sisters who are younger than me, right? They are using ChatGPT more every
Yeah.
single day. Like that's their
Yeah.
search engine now. It's no longer Google, right?
Yeah.
We went through where Google, it
Yes.
became like a synonym, right? Let's Google it.
Yes.
Now people are, let's ChatGPT it. So that kind of tectonic shift has happened in 2024. Companies who are not catching up, they will have to catch up. They'll be forced to do so. If they haven't already done so in 2024, this year they will have to catch up and try to regulate it somehow, rather than allowing people who have got access to free source ChatGPT, etc. They will have to somehow regulate that so the source is well managed within the company of the usage at least. So I think that prediction has already come to fruition in quite spectacular way in 2024.
Yeah, I would even go one step further. You have no chance anymore to escape it.
You
We
don't
all
have a
have a
choice.
smartphone. You either have
Correct.
Apple Intelligence or you have Google Gemini.
I mean,
It's
Google
there. You
search.
can't not have it.
Google search is now AI enabled, right? The
Yeah.
first response is not a sponsored ad anymore. It's what Gemini tells you.
That's right.
When you
Yeah.
type something on Google.
Yeah.
Workday search, right? We saw it at Rising, and we've been using it. All of us are Workday users. Workday search is AI enabled. It's no longer here's some few text matches, right? It's so we have already seen that happening. There's no escaping it anymore.
I agree. The question for me is, and would love to get your perspective on that. I think you can look at it from two different perspectives on AI, and particularly Gen AI. Is it a product? Because ChatGPT, that's a product.
Mhm.
Or is it a feature? AI search in Workday is a feature, not a product. From our lens perspective, from our HR perspective, will we see Gen AI products more, or will we see more Gen AI and AI as a feature in existing products? Where do you see the future going?
So both. It's not mutually exclusive, right? Because I mean, there are use cases you and I we discussed before as well, right? In day-to-day flow of work, we want more AI-enabled search. We don't want here are some matching keywords, etc. We want it to be more intelligent in the way where the chatbots are responding, or
Yeah.
any kind of query is responding to us. And we want the product as well to do the tasks for us.
Yeah.
Right. So things like Microsoft Copilot, right? I'm not just talking about ChatGPT at this point. I'm talking about an AI product, right? I want Microsoft Copilot. It's completely changed my life since I've received the license, which is regulated and facilitated by my organization. PowerPoint slides, which used to take me days to format, it takes me minutes now to format, right? I don't have to learn QPT, none of that. Excel spreadsheets are taking me seconds, minutes to produce. Microsoft Word proofreading, referencing takes me minutes to do. So it has significantly improved my productivity as an individual. So as a product, I like to use it. And again, it's for the tech savvy. Not everyone's going to be adoption as any other technology is going to be varied across different people. But I think as a product, as an employee, I like it as well. And I want it as a feature embedded into every single other product that I use. Wherever it can be used, I would like it to be there because it's intelligent. It's just that for me.
Absolutely. Davis, what do you think?
Very similarly, I think it's both. I think that more and more products, devices will become enabled by AI, and if they don't, they will be left behind. I think we were in a conference last year, Volker, you and I together, I think in January, and someone was talking about the phones, right? Actually,
Yes.
and remember that the example they gave was about how our phones are going to become applications will become AI managed, or however we want to call that thing, because it's no longer there will be applications, but they will be all of them AI powered.
Yes.
So I think that that's definitely the direction of travel. That's what's going to happen. Prateek, I can see that you are very versed in using AI, and I wish I could leverage in the same way. But you're right, and not everyone will have the skills. You need to be somewhat tech savvy to direct the thing with the right prompts, right, and to make it do the right things for you. Which leads me then to ask myself, what are the skills and the capabilities that we need for
Exactly.
in our organizations as well, right? But so the topic is very vast, I suppose.
Yeah. It is, and the question, Prateek, I think you were just saying it. Google, right? We are Googling it. This is our generation. Oh God, we again talking about age. But yes, and we should have all bought Google shares on day one. But hey, we learn. Never mind. So I think I don't know anyone, inclusive of my kids, who don't know how to Google, how to search. Everyone knows that, and I think everyone gets like an 80% result of that. Maybe you can still do some crazy things with Google search, with a legacy search that not everyone can do, but you get to this 80% without any specialty. Do we think that we will have very soon or at all AI and Gen AI at this simplicity level that no specific skills are needed to use it? Or is this something that is further out or will never come?
So I'll use what you mentioned earlier to put into perspective, right? So when Google came out or became vastly used, it was late 90s, early 2000s, right? When Google became like a household name. And I'm not going to tell you how old I was because that's going to give away the age here. But it took...
We still all started with Yahoo search, didn't we?
Yeah, everyone had Yahoo search and AOL and then Google and everything. But my point being, the adoption of Google, if you think in perspective, right, within 10 years, it became synonym. And that was with a generation which was not brought up with internet and computers. Now we're talking about a generation. Microsoft has been around for 50 years, right? Internet has been around for more than 30, 50 years, 40 years now. So we are talking about a generation that has grown up with internet and adoption of tech. I think the adoption of AI is going to be much faster than what it was for Google or computers, because the generation there was a shift of mindset that happened in the 90s, right, with the dot-com bubble. Now we are talking that generation is now moving towards being grandparents. So you've got two or three generations since then that has grown up in the age of internet. So for them, this is just like a new application. It's literally like Angry Birds, right? It will become a phenomenon very quickly, rather than taking 10 years time like Google, the slow ramp. This is going to be a super fast ramp. And you mentioned shares earlier. Then the number of years it took Google to get to where it is right now, divide that by 15 is the number of years it took NVIDIA. And it surpassed Google. And that's an AI-driven tech firm. So that's the speed difference that you see. And it's going to become even more faster as we move along.
That's very interesting, Prateek, and you're right. I do still want to go back to the point of the different segments of generations that we have in our workforce, right? We keep going back to the age conversation, but our oldest generations we would have learned to use all these tools, but we're not as tech savvy as my kids are, right? They're in their 20s. So ensuring that we still upskill, reskill that later generation that we have as well, so that they can take advantage of these tools and that we make them productive as
Totally,
the youngest generations, right? I mean, there's an element there on the right skills that we need in organizations to really use these tools effectively. Otherwise, people will very subutilize AI and not take it full advantage of them.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I think I'm somewhere in between, right? It will probably go much faster, Prateek, as you said. But also the question is, how will the different generations deal with that, and what will be the difference, right? Are we run over by the young guns and all of their natural born skills with that?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Or will we be able to keep a balance between the different generations by upskilling everyone else as well, and making sure that we are getting there? That's an interesting one.
And I think there's a positive element to that as well, right?
Yeah.
It's like what Davis was mentioning earlier, and what we were talking about it. Tech is good, right? The core thought behind what the technology can do is good, but the usage, like Davis said earlier, right? I think having that generation that is not blindly uptaking it and running away with it will probably bring that groundedness in terms of, are we using it the right way? And that goes back to the first point we were discussing, right? The biggest hesitation people have got around the ethical use of AI.
Yeah.
Not the
That's a
use
good
of
one.
AI. It's a given. Everyone wants to use AI.
Yeah.
But are we using it the right way, like David said right
Yeah.
now, is the most important. So having those two sort of, let's not say two spectrums of the population, where one end is we must adopt it because it's a way of life, and one end is right,
Yeah.
wait a second, it's a new technology. We like tech,
Yeah.
but we want to understand it first.
Yeah.
I think only brings a bit of balance, which is
Balance
required.
with it.
Mm.
Otherwise,
That's
it'll
a good
become
one.
like Bitcoin, right? So it's just gonna.
Yeah, let's not go there. I think that's a good one to have a look at. Prediction number 3. Give me 1 second. This time we will hear from Sophie.
And what I also think we will understand in 2024 is that the topics of getting our processes right and the topic of getting data right will only become more important. So I think to get to that point where we can really utilize what's coming to us, there is some foundational work that I think we all need to be even more clear on in 2024.
What do you think, guys? Readiness for AI.
I think we mentioned earlier, any artificial intelligence is essentially machine learning, right? It's you need data to teach it something, and then it learns on its own. But it requires vast amounts of structured data for it to start somewhere. Now, obviously, we've got some AI tools that are being taught with extensive databases from Microsoft and internet and all of the world. But for an organization to work effectively, and we spoke quite extensively, Volker, about it a couple of years ago when we were looking into how we can use AI on Knowledge Portal and how it can read policies and things like that, and putting into perspective of HR. If you don't have structured Knowledge Portal, if you don't have structured policies, if it's not curated properly, then it's garbage in, garbage out, essentially, right? So any artificial intelligence does require a curated sort of data set, not curated, but a good and qualitative data entry or data input in order for it to work. So I think the prediction around the companies will want to work on data or to harmonize their systems. I think companies will continue to do that because they have been doing it for quite some years now. But yeah, I mean, it's less a prediction for me. It's more of a reality, right? Everyone has been pushing for it. I think it's now become essential. People who are on the fence, the minority, I think they are also now kind of strong armed into doing it.
We call it brilliant basics in
exactly.
Brilliant basics,
Exactly.
the foundation. However, we started not because we were thinking of AI and the data quality that we needed. We started because we said we don't trust our HR data. But now it seems that there's a different intentionality as why we want to do it. Because every company that we talk to, and when we talk about use cases, we always go back to, but your data has to be right before you implement anything. And then you have to go back to the drawing board and then start thinking about new projects of HR data quality and harmonization of policies and creation of knowledge bases and all of those things. So the thing becomes even bigger. But now there's a more important reason as to why to do it, which is the consecution of an AI enabled technology in the future.
Yeah. And if we don't get it right, that nice AI will surface all of our outdated content to us and will show us how we have not cleaned up properly throughout the last year.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, let me give you an example, right, where it can go right and it can go wrong. And we were again discussing in context of Mondelez last year, skills, right? There's lots of AI tools right now on curation of skills and how we can retain people or curated learning paths. And this is, I think the largest focus of AI in the HR space, at least, right? For the human resource users, not for the end users, but for the human resource users, let's say within our functions. If you don't have the right amount of data to be able to identify the skills that your people possess in the company, whether it's self-certified, whether we have gone through mining of their experiences and CVs and verified data sources, whatever it may be, the AI tool or the proficiency calculators, etc., that we have been talking about will only return what it's being fed into. Right, it will only show you the learning path based on what data has been fed into. Right, it will only give you predictions based on the data it's being fed into. So I think that's where, to Davis's point, right, is getting that brilliant basics. Yes, we know how many people that work in our organization. Great, that's a tick box done. But I think a lot of organizations are now working or have been working for the last couple of years towards trying to refine what are the meaningful data sources that we need to have in order to be able to move towards that predictive or prescriptive kind of analytics, which then is now becoming AI enabled in terms of personalized recommendations and personalized employee experience or personalized experience for your HR leaders or managers or whoever it may be. So I think it's a very important thing to get right. Whether it's something that has shifted in 2024, I'm not 100% sure. I think this has been happening for a couple of years, and it will continue to happen. It's just nature, right? Some people are faster to get there. Some people are a little bit slower.
So it's like Davis, you just said, right? We were talking about it, but now it has a different impact on it if we have not done it. Yeah, that makes sense. I think really from that perspective, we still have a lot to clean up and to do, because I think it's human nature to enjoy creation of new things more than, cleaning up old things, and therefore it's yeah, more natural to just accumulate all stuff. I mean, Davis, I think you're okay with me sharing that you just moved houses. How much old stuff did you find and throw away there, right? When you're really forced to do it, you find things, don't you?
Well, I made 3 trips to the tip, with my car full of crap, really. And I told my kids, I think this is my favorite place. Yeah, I just love to go out there and get rid of stuff, really. But yeah, you're right. I mean, there's so many things that we accumulate, right, through the years. But this is another way then to find out about those things that are there. Um, I think it serves so many purposes at the end of the day, right? With different outcomes, but then or a different intention, but then at the end, it's becoming a positive thing.
Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. Let's come to our last prediction from last year. And Prateek, you have already started to talk about it a bit. Skills. We hear from Sonia in a second.
I also think we should be building for the future, investing in the future during 2024 with an eye on the medium to the long term, which is why I think org design, skills-based organizations, experimentation with more of a skills-based approach, using AI to rethink jobs and to help the humans to go up a level. I think that these are critically important during 2024, rather than just focusing on the more immediate term issues that people might be facing.
Let me be the first one to start on this one, because I find it fascinating, because here I really saw polar opposites. I saw, and I'm in the same camp, to say skills-based organization, maybe not for the full organization, but for the competitive advantage, the important functions, to make sure you know what you have, you know what you can source, and you can get ready for the future when you have less and less people without skills, or have a plan for it. Definitely, we need this, and I see this happening, at least from a conversational perspective, with my peers. But I also see the polar opposite, where people say this is just another bloated invention of some HR influencers, or some sort, that we don't need at all, and it will not bring us further. What do you hear and what do you think?
I'm just reflecting in our own reality. We talk a lot about skill-based organization.
Mhm.
And a couple of things I find is that not everyone understands what that means. And second is that, do we have the right foundations in the work architecture, really, to create a skill-based organization? So there is a lot of work to be done before we get there. So assessing the level of maturity that our organizations have for those technologies and for those aspirations, really, and the readiness as well. I'll give you one example. Last year, we implemented Fuel 50, and we wanted to use it for to license to operate certifications, training, and also to give people the right paths for their careers. But the foundations that we had were so poor, really, in terms of data, and the scope that we used, the pilot, was so limited that we were only able to extract very few data points. So at the end, we couldn't leverage the power of the tool.
Yeah.
So the big learning, and we pulled the plug on that one. So the big learning for us was, are we implementing something that is what we need at this moment in time? Or is it something that we only want? All the bells and whistles that we put in place were not the right things for the level of maturity in which we were from a technology and cultural perspective. Right? So we probably could have gone with something less sophisticated and get more results or better results than something that was the Ferrari of skills in careers and all those things. So there's something there around maturity of organizations as to, can you become a skill-based organization at that point, and what are then the foundations that you need in order to do that? Those are the two dimensions that I will add to this conversation on this one.
Let me try to dig up history a little bit, right? Because I this is another thing, Davis, right? I'm a big history geek, and if you look at the last sort of, I don't know, let's say post World War II era, right? The way we operate, it's all about degrees and economics around. Yeah, if you've got a computer science degree, then yeah, you'll be eligible for this job, otherwise you won't. I think that's fundamentally flawed in the way that it has worked for us because we went through a boom when the whole world was in depression since 1930s. There's been an era of boom since 2008 or something. We've been a stagnant economy, right? Apart from few shining stars here and there, it's been pretty stagnant. But if you go back to the times when the industrial revolution happened, there was no degrees, there was no one teaching stuff. It was about skills, right? When people are working on ships, have you got strong hands? Can you lift heavy weight? Can you lift heavy weight? Are you muscular? Yeah, come and work in the ship. You'll become a sailor, right? You don't need to go to a sailing school and know how to do things. You learn on the job. And I think that principle is now becoming critical as well, because there's a little bit of a population stagnation we're going through, right? So
At least in the West.
In almost all of the advanced economies, right? If we look at Japan and
Yeah,
Korea, and
I
you
mean-
and I, we digressed one day in our conversations, right? Korea's population is going to drop by 1/3 in a decade now.
Yeah.
So a lot of the advanced economies in the world, we're going through population
Inclusive
stagnation.
of China, actually.
Yeah, exactly. China has now started dipping, right? So we do need to turn into looking at the population we've got and how do we extract the best out of the people we have rather than boxing them into certain areas. Davis and I were discussing earlier, right? Tomorrow, if we lose our jobs, we've got a skill to be a motorbike mechanic. We can open a motorbike garage and become a motorbike mechanic. Why not?
And no one knew it.
But it's not written on our degree. None of us have been to an automobile engineering school or something like that. So will Ducati or Triumph hire us because we don't have a degree? Or will they look at, okay, Davis and Prateek have done work on 4 or 5 motorbikes and renovation or whatever it is, and they do possess the fundamental skills, hence they can come and work. So I think that's the kind of, with the labor shortage that we are going to face, right? And also with the protectionism that's going on within the developed economies, there is a acute labor shortage in UK. UK is facing an acute labor shortage right now. With the labor shortage we are facing,
that's different reasons, though.
Whatever, but it's protectionism, right? That's caused the labor shortage. So with the labor shortage that's happening in the advanced economies, if we don't turn into this skill-based approach of finding people to do the jobs, I think we're doomed. So I'm very extreme on my thinking. Let's say I'm not cautious at all, right? When it comes to, it's kind of what we were talking about AI earlier. I think organizations which are sitting there and saying, well, this is all just theory. Sure, but it's quite a proven theory. History repeats itself, right? It's not a new thing that HR wizards have come up, or whatever you call them, HR influencers have come up with. It's repeatable, proven history that's happening again. And if we are going to be like an ostrich, then yeah, some people can choose to be like an ostrich, right? There's always a choice. But I don't agree that this is something that people can take for granted and approach cautiously. I think that's quite dangerous. Nokia did that a while ago, and
after they've ditched it for a very long period, right?
Correct.
I think we all know Nokia was originally a gumboot company.
Correct.
Right? So they knew what to change, and then they lost
And the
it.
best example of that, I mean, you're based quite close to Munich, Volker, is BMW, right? They didn't start as a motor car company. They started as an engine manufacturer for aircrafts, but the people knew how to make engine, right? When the war was over,
Exactly.
they
Yeah.
knew how to make engines. So why don't we turn into something else? So that's the reskilling thing, right? They didn't go and say, okay, now we need to fire all of the aircraft engineers and we now need to go and hire people who have got certification in automobile engineering. No, you've got the people who possess 80% of the skills. How do we find the adjacency? How do we invest that 20% into upskilling them so that we can transform it with time? And I think that piece, organizations which are missing, I've got quite fundamental view on that, are basically being kind of ostriches, right? It's like you either stay in the game or you will fall behind.
Yeah. I mean, the first thing I have to say is that I do hope that my job stays relevant for a long time, because different than you, I was thinking, I think I don't have anything else. I'm sorry. I'm just an HR geek. I'm sorry. Maybe I should learn from you how to do motorcycles. I don't know, but
Well,
that's
you are a very good social media influencer.
didn't I just complain about them? Anyway,
No,
that's but
Influencers, yeah.
yeah, but I think, you know, as I said at the beginning, I'm in full alignment. I think we need to do there. Not necessarily because I believe a skills-based company is the right thing, but because I have yet to see something better to address the shortage of talent
exactly.
that we are facing already today, right? And that's the question for me.
And that's why I mentioned, right? It's quite similar to the first point we were discussing. I don't think it's a choice anymore. You can be cautious. Yeah, you can take a slower approach, but you don't have a choice to wait and watch.
Yeah.
You cannot not do this, because where we live in the advanced economies of the world, this is now compulsory.
And I think it is true, Davis. I see very similar. Most companies, organizations are not yet ready for it. So being able to get there, lifting the maturity, you need some time. Therefore, if you don't start now, it's very similar with AI, right? If you don't start now, you might miss that train.
Yeah.
Therefore, it's great again to experiment, learn what someone knows, what you don't know, and how to basically bridge this gap to
And
become
there
more successful in
and
that.
there are so many organizations. I mean, we can and like I mentioned earlier, right? History repeats itself. One of the most recent victims of an organization that didn't look into skills of its people and pivot a little bit is Intel, right? 10
Yes.
years ago,
Not
Intel
even
was
4 years
yeah,
ago.
5 years ago. Yeah, 4 or
Yeah.
5 years ago, until Apple launched its own chips, right? Intel was the pioneer, right? They will come out with quad core. We were like, wow, dual core, quad core, right? 8 core PCs. It's like, this is incredible. Now we've got NVIDIA graphic cards. I mean, we used to use NVIDIA only for graphic cards, right?
Mhm.
When Intel was the king of microchips. And now Intel is struggling to stay afloat. AMD is
Yes.
bigger than Intel, whereas AMD used to be the cheaper version of chips that you can buy compared to Intel
Yeah.
at that time. If you don't have
Yeah.
enough money to buy
Yeah.
an expensive laptop, you'll buy an
Yes.
AMD Athlon,
Yes.
right? But now it's kind of reversed completely. So organizations that and skills is not just within HR domain, right? It's for human resource as a function to enable or to push the organization
organization.
into this approach. And organizations which are not really following this are falling behind, right? I mean, we got big examples. Volkswagen, for example, right? It's not really following the trend either. You have to keep up with times.
Yes. Exactly. There's no way you can survive as an ostrich.
No.
Not long, unfortunately. But looking forward now, thank you so much for sharing your views on the predictions for 24. But what will 25 bring? What do you think 25 will bring? tell me about your thoughts on 25. Any big trend you see? Any predictions? What are your thoughts on 2025?
I think that apart from AI, and we've spoken already too much about AI. I think that there's still a more softer side on human resources, if you will, and you touched on it, Prateek, on the talent shortages that we have, and organizations will continue to pay attention to leadership development, will continue to pay attention to retention of talent, will continue to pay attention to skilling and upskilling their talent to ensure that they can deliver their business goals. Right. So I think that there's a big element there still from organizations to ensure that they make their people successful and then their organizations successful. I don't think that that will go away.
Yeah.
That won't go away.
Yeah.
And the second thing that will continue to happen is transformation of human resources. I think that all of our organizations remain under a lot of pressure for many reasons: macroeconomic conditions, changes in the consumers' trends. In our area, for example, in spirits, the younger generations are changing their attitude towards alcohol. So things are changing.
Yeah.
How do we make sure that the people that we have can adjust and adapt to the changes? So
To stay relevant.
and our organization as well as our function. So talent, transformation of our functions. And the third thing that I would say is embracing that and I like to sometimes to move away from the word transformation. And I like to use evolution to embrace the constant evolution that our organizations will always go through. Transformation sounds to me that there's going to be an end state at some point. You go from A to B, transformed. No, it's from A to who knows what. There's the infinite game, right?
Yes.
This is not ending. It's a constant
Yes.
evolution. And we have plenty of examples from many organizations, Volker, and I like to take Mondelez as an example all the time because of all the things that you guys have done over the past 5-6 years, a constant evolution of platforms, of experiences, of structures, integrations, so many things. Sometimes we get fixated in the word transformation as it is one activity in time,
One event.
but it is a constant transformation. So for me, this is about leadership development. It's about the talent that we have in the retention of talent. It's about transformation. It's about change management. Those are the predictions that organizations will continue to focus on from our HR perspective.
Thanks, David. I particularly like going away from transformation to HR evolution. I think this is a right rebranding. Thank you. Prateek, what do you think about 25?
I think I agree with everything that that Davis mentioned. One thing that I think we've already started seeing it, right, and it's going to happen. And being a man of analogy, I'll give you an analogy as well. Is I think we'll see a lot more acceleration in automation. I think HR as a function had been quite hesitant in automation, right? We often thought, yeah, there's going to be bias, whether it's interviews or whether it's CV screening. Now we are seeing AI and NLPs doing interviews in kind of natural language, etc., with people, screenings happening. We were talking about things that we are looking at what Paradox is doing, right? For example, this is all AI driven.
Yes.
So I think automation and uptake of automation is going to be more accelerated in 2025, AI driven or non-AI driven, bots driven, whatever it may be. And that again is an impact of people's behaviors changing, right? If you ask my friends or my family 5 years ago, what about that garden automatic lawn mower, right? Robot lawnmower, nobody wanted it, right? It's non-proven technology. I've got one now. I've got one at home, no longer Dyson, right? I've got one which does the job on its own. So I think people who were hesitant or cynical, let's say, have changed in personal life, and personal life often drives the behaviors at work because you are a person at the end of the day, right? We are people-centric world. So I think that is going to happen a lot more. totally agree with Davis around skills, and I want to call it hyper personalization, right, in terms of the employee experience. And I give you an example that I've been facing because my company is piloting quite a lot of AI. Is I'm getting a lot more personalized learning recommendations now because we've gone through that data mining of skills, and we know what are the jobs that are coming in the future. So organizations which are setting themselves up right, they can really push forward this hyper, let's call it personalized self-service for people. So I think that's something that
personalized career management.
Correct. Personalized career management, and it can be used as a retention mechanism for motivation, for people who are obsessed with NPS score. It'll improve NPS scores, etc. Right? There's many things that it'll improve, but I think fundamentally what it will do is make your organization and your people future ready, rather than just telling everybody go and train yourself on something that's coming up. You've got these interest areas. We've seen that you've been operating in these kind of projects, and again, the sector I work in is quite easy because we are very data rich in the way we operate. You work from projects to projects, so you know exactly what kind of projects you're working on. So again, the uptake will be different, but it will definitely be higher.
Yeah.
It will be a trend during this year. And then the other thing that I think will continue, and I've never liked the word transformation, because what does transformation actually mean, right? By the time you transform, you're already late. So it's something else has come up by that time, right? Projects take 2 years, 3 years to run. I think the idea around integrated platforms and more digitizations in certain areas, I think that will come up quite a lot. You and I, Volker, we were discussing last year around blockchain. Some areas of the world, like Europe, will be obviously slower to take it because of the way we operate. We are quite apprehensive about new technologies and regulations in European Union, etc. But some countries which are more digital savvy, like Sweden, UK, USA, the uptake and the opportunity is enormous there. So I see more integrated technologies solving HR problem than rather than just looking at it from a transactional perspective. Usage of tech which exists in other areas to come and resolve some of the issues or some of the challenges or the barriers that we've got within HR as well. So these are kind of the three areas. And then the skills thing, I think, is not going away. That's going to stay. It's probably going to be the biggest topic of 2025, 2026, 2027, unless we find a fundamental shift in the mindset and the ways of working. I think this is going to be one of the big topics for the next foreseeable future, at least. So these are kind of the four things that I think is definitely going to. And then we don't know, right? A year ago in January, we didn't know what kind of tech is going to pop out of the Pandora's box of Silicon Valley. Who knows?
But it's a good segue, Prateek. Thank you for sharing your prediction. It's a good segue because I don't want to go for a prediction, but maybe for a hope. If you look back again, I think you could say we had two big time frames of HR technology. We had the big monolithic HCM systems, SAP HCM, for example. And then, and believe it or not, it is 20 years ago already, the success factors and workdays came up with a cloud-based, much more agile and flexible mindset behind. And I think it's time for the next one, for the new success factors, for the new workday. Will there be, and I hope there is, a company out there that comes up with a very different idea and view on how technology can support us as HR practitioners? That's what I would like to see in 25.
I think that's not unrealistic hope, right? One of the things I learned from you actually a couple of years ago, or not learned from you, but kind of the idea of the whole flow of work piece. I think that's going to become more real this year, especially with the advent of AI, because now we are living in that flow of work, right? I gave an example earlier. I didn't go to booking.com or to whatever it's called. I don't even remember the website's name, right? Where you can go and see the reviews of places and what are the things to do. Top the Lonely Planet, right? Top 10 things to do in Thailand, the top 10 things to do in Cambodia. Went to ChatGPT, natural language. Please tell me how my 20 days in Southeast Asia is going to look like. I want to stay here for these many days, here for these many. I just had to give it my instructions in natural language. Did all the work for me. So that to me was in the flow of work.
Yeah.
I've got one place to go. It does everything for me. I would like to see that more in HR space, be it Teams, be it Slack, right? I would like people to go into Teams, whatever we want to call it, be a bot, amethyst, whatever it is, right? And say, I want to take holiday from this to that day. Please
Just
do
get
it.
it done.
Just get it done,
Yeah.
right? It's like no clicks, no transactions,
Don't
just
be
get
in the
it
way.
done. A ping goes to my manager on Microsoft Teams saying, this person has requested holiday. No need to click anywhere. Just reply with yes or
Just
no in
reply
natural
no.
language. Natural language, right? Just like a normal conversation would happen, facilitated by an artificial intelligence.
And Prateek, the next step is that the artificial intelligence will learn that your boss always says no, so your boss doesn't even have to.
So then he'll just skip the boss
Pay
and go to
attention.
his boss, right? So or go to HR and say change the boss. But my point being is, if we get to that place, it will bring us, because one of the things, at least I've seen in the last 15 years, and it'll be good to get your views because you guys have been within the organizations as well and as leaders. We've gone through this whole self-service revolution, let's call it, right? I still get mixed feedback about it, even to this date. There are people who still do not understand why they have to do things rather than doing or focusing on their jobs. Especially when I interact with companies which are more focused on production or blue collar employees, right? If you go and both of your organizations go and talk to your factory workers or their managers, I don't think that any of them have been happy that they have to do self-service. They might be pleased because HR used to be slow before. But if you fundamentally ask them, do you really like going into the system and clicking and doing those transactions yourself? Depending on the geographies, the answer will, especially in, and again, there's a cultural reason why in certain countries, people are happy to do it because they didn't used to get that facility before because they were low-cost employees.
Yeah.
But in Europe, I'm not sure that a lot of factory managers or shift managers will be very happy that they have to do transactions. So if we can somehow leverage technology and take them back to that red carpet or facilitated kind of way of
White glove
working,
service.
yeah, I think that will be very well received by at least the employee population. I certainly, as an employee, I would like that. Right, for someone who has to work on billable hours, for me, if my admin work has been reduced by use of whatever technology that comes into play, and I don't have to go into 5 different systems to do 5 different things, or click 10 times, I'll be a very happy person.
Prateek, and I think that the a comment and answer to your point is about making things easier for end users.
Exactly.
It's about simplicity, because
Exactly.
in the flow of work, if I can do those things very easily, very quickly, then I wouldn't mind if I have to do it myself from my phone or
Absolutely.
from wherever, right? But if it does take me to step away from my station, and then I have to log into a kiosk, and then I have to send the case to someone, and then that person needs to action that, and then the approval goes to my manager, and then my manager. I mean, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of clicks. But if we can make it as simple for them and as easy for them that they can actually do it whilst they're walking to their station or during lunch or whatever.
Exactly.
It's the key, right? It's about making things easier for end users.
Exactly. I mean, if you look at I always classify this as one of the biggest technology success stories in Europe, right? Spotify. music industry existed before. We all used to burn CDs and record tapes when we were younger.
No, we did not.
Yeah, I did. It was, I definitely did turn the tape and rewind side A and side B, right? So my point being, it's not that people didn't want to listen to music. It's how we commoditized it, how we democratized it, right? So if you democratize the work, people will want to do it. It's just how easy it is now. That's what makes it more usable. I'm not sure that 10 clicks rather than tapping someone on the shoulder, hey, Bob, can you do this for me? And now I have to go into the system and do 10 clicks, or a quick email or a memo back in the day to one's office secretary, whatever it was that used to do the work. I'm not sure it's always appreciated by people. I think there's a lot of adoption because they have to do it rather than they want to do it. But if we make it into people wanting to do it, I think that will be incredible. And the best success story of that is banking. I mean, nobody wants to queue up in a bank anymore.
Yeah. But Prateek, I see where you're going at, and not necessarily disagreeing. The difference, though, is both in Spotify and in banking. The answer to the question, what's in it for me, is easy. For most of HR self-services, if you ask an employee, what's in it for me if I do that?
Totally. You're right.
The answer is not really satisfactory,
No.
right?
Yeah.
And I think this is how we need to go about it. Think about what are the services, or whatever you want to call it, where there is something in for the employee, and make this tangible and make the employee understand that there is something for them to win. And everything else, let's try to, going back to you, Prateek, let's try to automate it. Let's try to get it completely out of the way.
Make it minimum effort. As long as
Zero effort.
Exactly. As long as it's minimum effort, I think that should be the goal of HR, right?
Yeah.
And I'm hoping, I think the tech exists. I think it's like a jigsaw puzzle. You need to fit it together. There needs to be some advancement in how it will come together. I think there are people who understand it, like yourself, Volker. I've spoken to you many times. I think there are people who understand it. I think there are people who do not understand it completely. I think there needs to be people who understand it, and different people who have different sets of technology to come together, and it will come. But I'm hoping, it's not my prediction, like you said. My sincere wish is that in 2025, there's something that shifts in that space which can help us move forward. Because to your point, we are kind of stuck in that since iPhone 4, nothing has really changed.
Yeah.
No, we went back to the iPhone 3 style in iPhone 6 and 7 and 8, and then went back to iPhone 4 style. But you get my point. It's like this hasn't been a significant change since iPhone 4.
Exactly.
So I think that kind of significant change, or at least the mindset change, needs to happen in the way we operate. And I'm hoping that 2025 will spark that shift. The basics are there. We just need to, like, Apple knows.
Someone needs to take it.
Apple knows that it can hide the face recognition behind the screen because Samsung's done it, but they're just not doing it. So something like that needs to happen.
I think this is a very good point to close the podcast for today, because this is something we can argue next year about at the same time, the same location, to see what actually 25 brought.
We'll probably be there. Oh, damn it. But I hope it'll be
And
there,
then we
like,
do it, the three of us, and we say, like, you know what, if no one has done it, just let's get it done. We do it.
Yeah, that might be the time we're like, you know what, no one's doing it, let's do it.
Let's do it. We take some spirits from Davis, some chocolate from me, and then let's
Not
get the
six.
three of us together
We don't need
and have
anything
fun.
else.
Spirits and chocolates, that's all, Davis. You're right.
What else do you need? So there's something to drink and something to eat. We have it all. No, thank you so much, Davis. Thank you so much, Prateek, for the great conversation today, for looking back at 2024 as well as looking forward to 2025. I really enjoyed the conversation, and thank you again for being my guest. Have a great start into 2025.
Thank you for having us, Volker.
Thank you so much. And very nice to meet you, Davis. And thank you for having me.
Likewise, Prateek.